Welcome to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast with Shannon Scott, where we talk about life's seasons, joyful, challenging, and everything in between, and how God is working in all of them. Join us each week for conversations filled with hope, truth, and the encouragement that He is always making everything beautiful. This podcast is sponsored by Kava, helping you take your next step in faith through digital resources that deepen discipleship. Check them out at Kava, QAVA.tv. And now, on with the show.
Well, hey, C-Knock.
Hi, Shannon.
Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. You're my first repeat guest.
Oh, I'm so honored.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Love it.
Well, welcome everybody to Everything Made Beautiful. We are excited today because we get to talk about a new project for Christy that I wanted to make sure you all hear about. And as part of that, we get to talk about a new season we're both entering in our lives, which is going to be a whole thing.
Yes.
But for those of you who have not either heard Christy's first podcast episode or don't know our story, we have been friends for decades now, which is super fun. Jeff, my husband Jeff, had a long history with Nathan and Christy before I came along, and then I came along. And Christy and I became friends at a previous church we were both at. And now we've gotten to have several ministry seasons and church seasons and family seasons together. And so it's just been a sweet thing. So we joke that I have a cheerleading uniform in my closet with C-Knock on it that I pull out.
She does.
So that I can cheer her on in everything she's doing in her life. And so my text cheer to her is always, give me a C.
She also has a karate uniform because
Yes.
you can get very protective of me as well.
Yes,
so.
I'm very protective. Yes. But this is a Give Me a C podcast because we get to talk about your project, which I'm so excited about. So let's talk about that first because that will just lead us into everything else. So you are releasing, and depending on when this podcast airs, have released a brand new lullaby record, which this is your second lullaby album.
It is.
And now somebody might be like, okay, great. I guess that'll be sweet for babies, but this is not an album that is just for babies, though that is a fabulous use for it. It's for adults too, which you found with your first record. So why lullabies? Why a second album? And just like, what is in your heart for this record?
Yeah. Well, I think through the years, we have continued to hear the stories. And I think that's initially kind of what stirred us like, okay, is there maybe another one? Mm-hmm. And I think a part of the beauty of this album has been that it is a shared listening experience for families. And so, you can imagine a mom playing these over her kids in her minivan, but often the stories we get are, the mom's up there crying and she's like, the lullaby's falling on me because the Lord is teaching me something. And the song is, bringing that home and he's, growing me. And then it's, her kids are asleep in the back so she can kind of have that peaceful moment. I can't tell you how many little videos I've gotten through the years. One of my favorites is a friend of mine. It's her niece. And I bet she's like 2.5 in the video. And she's in her car seat in the back. And the beginning of the video is the mom saying, hey, tell me again who you just asked, for me to play. And I mean, she had this big Chick-fil-A cup in her hand and she's like, play Christy Nockels. And the mom said, is it because you want to go to sleep? And she takes a big drink and she goes, uh-huh. And I was just like, what an honor, that the Lord could use our songs and my voice for that most, kind of a vulnerable time to like close your eyes and go to sleep. And a time that, we have a tendency to just, your brain starts spinning, you start thinking all the thoughts. And I just thought how precious, what an honor to be in that space with kids. Yes. And then over the parents as well, just getting to be a part of that has been amazing. This last record is called Be Held, Lullabies for the Beloved. I believe we released that in 2018 and it surprised us. It's been the most successful thing that we've ever done in 30 years. But even on a spiritual level, I would say that.
Yeah.
It surprised us of deep ministry that happened through these songs and the stories that, like I said, have continued to come through the years. And so, yeah, this new one is called King Who Never Sleeps. And yeah, it comes out June 6th. If you're listening to this, it may have already come out, but yeah.
I remember on the first record, you wrote a song called You Have What It Takes.
Yes.
And I believe it was for Noah.
It was.
And again, just to echo the story you just told, when that record came out, was in a transition season. I was taking a new job. I was moving to a new city. Like I did not really know what was in front of me. And it was the biggest leap I had taken to that point. And that song, the amount of times I played that song over my life and my thoughts and my mind. So yes, I second that it's for adults, babies, and everybody in between. There's something really timeless and tender about lullabies, but also something really sacred. Like you said, it's when we're going to sleep. It's when there's a possibility for fear. It's when our thoughts run away with us. What did the process of recording that this time around, with having such anecdotal evidence of how the first one had worked, what did that mantle feel like carrying it and writing it this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's made us become more and more prayerful, as even from the beginnings of a lot of times with this album in particular, I will get just the title of the song first. And so often it's just a phrase, or if I'm just in my quiet time with the Lord and I'll just write down a phrase. And so even from the moment that I get the phrase, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to start praying into this.
Yeah.
And what is the invitation, Lord, that you have for me, first off? And then what's the invitation this song is for others? What do you want to call people into? And so you're right. It has been sacred. It's been something. And then even when I've, done the vocals of these albums, you might have seen on my social media a couple of times, just brings me to tears. Because, of some of those stories through the years that have, people, telling us those sacred things that the Lord has done in their heart over these. And then, but just, taking these themes and going, wow, Lord, this is an invitation for me right now. And so often that's what the tears are about. Yeah. But often the tears are about, yes, Lord, take this, into the lives and ears and, families' homes, and do your work in people's hearts. That's the gift of music. And so, yeah, we do hold it super sacred. And of course, most of the songs are birthed from scripture. Yeah. And so there's that as well. So and even we still did on this album, just kind of a fun little fact, but, I'm speaking scripture, in each of these lullabies, and it is in there to like the level of like a cello or a violin.
Oh, that's good.
And so me just speaking scripture, I figure it's heard in the spiritual realm, even though it's not, audible when you're listening to the song. It's tucked in there just like a string instrument would be.
Oh,
and good. I just love knowing that it's been, saturated with scripture too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What were some of the recurring themes with this record that you kind of felt like, I love that it's called King Who Never Sleeps. I mean, the Lord who watches over you will not slumber or sleep.
Yeah.
What were some of the other themes that you just kind of felt threaded through this record?
Yeah. I think, the one that kept coming back to me was the refuge that we have in our King and his kingdom. And so from the very beginning, I started having sort of this picture of a coat of arms, or like a crest that would be representative of the kingdom that we belong to. And Colossians 1 kept coming back to me over and over, where it talks about our inheritance in the kingdom of the Son he loves, and how he is, those of us who've believed, he has rescued us from the realm of darkness, and he's brought us into the kingdom of light. And we have belonging in this kingdom and with this king. And so a lot of it was just like, how sweet to be able to even point kids. I have to think about kids listening, the whole time. It's so special to me because music was, it shaped my whole life. It's what I did with all my free time. I sat and listened to my records, and I listened to the lyrics. I let them wash over me. And so I love to think about kids, who are listening in that kind of posture. And I just thought, I want to point to the reasons we have to rest
Yeah.
in our King and his kingdom. So that is probably the most overarching theme. And then what's kind of fun is with this one, we decided the little subtitle is going to be Anthems for Rest. Last time it was Lullabies for the Beloved, which was, so beautiful and fitting. And then, and I hope too, maybe a few more people might give the album a chance that it says Anthems for Rest. Because like you kind of said in the beginning, like some people might look at lullabies and go like, well, I don't have kids. But I will tell you, through the years, more college kids, I think, than any have told us that they've listened to these in their dorm room or before a final or before tests, walking to class. And that has been something, the theme over and over has just been refuge and declaring our refuge in our King and his kingdom. And so, that's been one that's been coming back over us all the time. So,
well, I can tell you, I have said this before, but my youngest is 18 and she listens to Christy Nockels every night to go to sleep. Like it is, there is no like, what is Allie going to listen to? It is, she listens to lullabies to go to sleep.
Sweet.
Speaking of my youngest and your youngest, Allie and Annie are both graduating at the time of this recording on Saturday.
Yes.
And they are our third and final birds to fly the nest.
Yes.
Sweet stories about just Annie and Allie and their trajectories over the years because they met in a 4-year-old preschool classroom at a weekday preschool in Alpharetta, Georgia, that we both put our kids in. And they were together in preschool at church every Sunday. And so they became, obviously, they were leadership kids. So they were always there, every service. And I've told this story before, but I have to tell it again. It is my hands down favorite Annie Rose Nockels story of all time. But for those of you who haven't heard me tell it yet, obviously one of Christy's huge songs that took the world by storm in those early 2000s years or mid 2000s years was Waiting Here for You. And so it was getting sung everywhere we were and at church on Sunday and at our church. Thank goodness Christy was the one singing it, which was amazing. But Annie was, 4 or 5 years old and she wasn't loving the separation of mom's got to be on stage at 7 a.m. and so we had a little routine because I was the children's pastor and I'd go pick her up and we'd walk to the auditorium. She'd get to hear mom sing worship. She'd listen, but I'd always have a cup of goldfish and she would eat the goldfish. She never said much as a tiny girl. And then she'd be okay. And we'd go back and she was ready to go to class. Well, the not saying much didn't last terribly long. And she, I think, got the most words of any of the Nockels offspring.
Yeah.
And one day in church, in we called the preschool ministry Bloom, she was standing with Allie at the gate at the classroom. We kept them in with a gate.
They were trapped.
But it was snack time. And so we were coming around with the goldfish and we were getting ready to give it out to the class. And Annie stood at the gate with her little hands and fingers over the gate beside Allie. And when Casey, our volunteer, walked up to give her goldfish, she said, and I'm not making this up, waiting here for food. And we lost it entirely. I was like, well, I'll never hear that song the same way again. Every time I hear it, I think of Annie Rose and that story.
Oh my goodness.
She has turned out to be the comedian in the family.
She has, yeah.
And people don't realize that she gets that from you and from Nathan. Guys, they are hilariously funny and quick-witted. It is so funny, but Annie Rose has definitely gotten that. And so she and Allie kind of came in and out of each other's lives because we were always doing passion conferences together, even when we didn't live in the same state. But then when we moved to Nashville, we got to be back in church together. And then the girls got to be in school together. So now our girls graduated preschool together and they're graduating high school together on Saturday.
In fact, we have a picture that we've got.
Yes.
Cannot forget.
We have got to recreate
it. Yes.
Yeah, of them in their cap and gowns as 4-year-olds, and then we'll have them as
And
seniors.
they're both blue.
They're both blue, navy blue. It's crazy. Who knew God was being so intentional? But Allie and Annie both are like, we got to get the photo. We've got to get the photo.
Yeah,
So now we are becoming empty nesters.
Yeah.
Both of our girls are going away, and it's a season we've not done before.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about the song you wrote on the record that addresses this season, but then I'd love for us just to talk about what it's like for us as our youngest fly the nest.
Yes. Well, it's funny. The song called Fly the Nest Song, Carry You, I started actually for the first lullaby album all those years ago. And for whatever reason, I couldn't finish it. And I was like, I love this idea, that we still carry our children, way beyond carrying them in the womb. And what's that like, and I wanted to kind of sing about that. I figure moms will love this, but I couldn't finish it. And then when I started to dream about, and the stirrings first came for this album, it came back to me. In fact, it came back to me as I was going to pick up Annie from the girls played soccer together.
Oh yeah. Well, I'd use the word played loosely.
I talked about that a little bit on my podcast, how Annie would come down dressed like for soccer and she looked like a Barbie doll. Yeah. And I was like, you're going to play soccer, right?
Allie always says her uniform was always clean because she very rarely played. But when she did, she scored a goal one time.
That's
that's her claim to fame
of
high school.
For real. I was so excited to get to be a soccer mom for like a minute. But that trip we have a photo of the girls together from that trip. And the first thing I said, Annie sent it to me because she hurt her ankle. And that was the reason I was headed to Gatlinburg to get her early because there was maybe some suspicion that there was like a hairline fracture. And I still think there maybe was, but based on kind of, how it's just been hurting her ever since. But like, I know it's like a terrible mom, but the coaches assured us it was just sprained. But anyway, she sent a picture and it was so you and me. It was Allie with, holding Annie's ankle. And she was like, yeah, Allie kept making me lay down. I was like, yeah, that's what Shannon was doing.
She was holding ice on it. Yeah.
Like, just shut up, lay down.
Exactly.
But yeah, I was on my way to get her and that started to stir. And that was the beginning of their senior year. And, gosh, we had a couple of adventures. We won't go into the other one, but but on the way there and back from that trip, this started to stir. And I'm like, of course, this is for this season. And I didn't even know until I sat at the piano and wrote the bridge one day when everyone was out of the house. I didn't know how much I just needed words for this season for myself.
Yes,
and
totally.
And that's when that bridge came. It was like, I always knew the day would come when you'd look behind you and see this perfect pair of wings, which also came from something you said to me a long time ago about my own life. And it says there to lift these wings. They're there to lift and let you soar into beautiful things, into who you will be. And I just sat and I didn't even realize how much I needed to cry and just let a lot of it out. And, so I think it's so important to mark the season. I think it's important to listen to the songs. If you need to have a cry, that's actually good for us. We need to let those things out. And so this song has been a sweet way to mark the season in my own life. And then I just, of course, I thought about young moms though. And even just, I'm so glad that the Lord gave us insight to just start out that way. Yeah. Like carrying them in a way that it's like, I know this is, the Lord's just letting me borrow you. I've got to release you to the Lord, and just learning to carry them like that the whole way through, of just like this, open handed. So,
and I love that you said I needed to cry. I mean, I think, and I don't know that I would use the term grief, but there's definitely a sadness and a grieving when a season ends, even if it's supposed to, which all seasons eventually end. Yeah. But it's a God-given mechanism for processing that letting go and that separating. I know for me, as this season has been impending, it's not like it surprised me. I always knew it was coming. But I have really sensed, especially in the second half of the school year, the Lord just going, be intentional, be present, don't miss this. In fact, savor this.
Yeah.
And Allie got a cold, like it was literally a cold. But you would have thought I was Florence Nightingale. I was just like, oh, do you need this? Do you need your favorite pillow? Do you need your
Totally,
blanket? I was just so aware that I wasn't going to be, ministering in these moments as often anymore. And I think it's so important for us as parents, as moms. It's okay to savor.
Yeah.
I sensed the Lord saying, be really generous with your no and be really intentional with your yeses, even in this season, because, our pastor several years ago said, everything you say yes to is less there is for something already there. So make sure that your yes is worth the less. And that I'm so grateful that I did that. I said no to many things in this season, and it's given me such a sweet experience with Allie, Jeff and I both. What would you say have been some of the most surprising emotions that you have experienced in this letting go and flying the nest season?
Yeah. Well, gosh, that's a tough one. Well, all at the same time, I will say that, we also have our oldest he got engaged.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that came at a time that just has felt like joy. I mean, that's been so sweet to just have these moments of getting to, honestly, with Noah, he's marrying a gal that we've all known since she was, 8 years old. And that just felt miraculous of God bringing them together. But of course, I think, that it, again, like you said, it's not that it surprised me, but of course I have felt, my mom not being here, it has felt like this, it's weird, especially on both sides. Our kids don't have either grandmother now. Nathan lost his mom a little bit before I lost mine. And I think, not that it was surprising, but I think those emotions have, felt a lot deeper than I thought they would, especially in those joyful moments, especially I know I'll feel it when, I felt it when Annie was in the musical the other night. Our girls were also in the musical together. And, my dad came, but I just thought, oh, my mom would love this. Or the night that, Noah got engaged, oh, my mom would love this. And so I think I have felt like, wow, I'm carrying that mantle in this season of almost like, I don't feel the need to have to, be something I'm not or fill their void, but there is a sense of, wow, I do feel called to make sure that this is special, and just doing those things and being present, in a way to kind of not fill the space, but just make it really meaningful and special, because we don't have either grandma to send the pictures to, or for her to be there by my side and taking the pictures, so that has kind of surprised me too, how deep that's felt. But
no, I feel the same. I am in an interesting situation that's similar to yours, but a little different in that my dad's already with Jesus, but my mom, as most people know, has dementia. And so she's in a memory care facility. So to pick her up and take her to graduation, that would be very unsettling for her. So we know that that's not an option. So I'm experiencing the surprise of my nest is emptying, and I kind of effectually have also lost my parents. And so there's this kind of chasm forming that I'm not afraid of, but I'm very aware of, which made me think, for a lot of us as parents, but certainly as moms, when you have multiple kids, they always say the years are short, but the days are really long. But when the years and the days kind of come to an end and it's time to move them into a new season, if it's felt like motherhood was your calling, then it can be unsettling. Now who am I now that I'm done with the daily parenting of my kids? Parenting never ends. We're there for our kids in a different way, but certainly the day-to-day, day in and day out kind of tapers off. What would you say to young moms who don't want to get to an empty nest season and wonder who they are.
Yeah.
How did you cultivate, the other things that God had called you to alongside being a wife and being a mom?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so thankful, that the Lord did get a hold of my heart early on. And, I wrote a book about that season, The Life You Long For, and just learning to, seek the Lord. Kind of, I use the example or just the visual of a bullseye, hitting that bullseye with the Lord, and he will take care of all the outer rings of your life. And I think when my kids were little, there was just a temptation to think that if I couldn't do the latest, huge Bible study that was this thick and, have that
Fill in all the blanks.
totally, then it was like kind of all or nothing. But what was so sweet is that the Lord was really calling me to experience him while I was in the minivan with my kids. But also at the same time, he just showed me, some younger women who he had brought truly like just in the vicinity of me. And I looked around and he was like, do you see that I've brought these young women, and you have those people around you too, you young mamas out there. You may not realize it, but you might have some college student girls, or it might be one of the girls that helps you out with the kids. And there is certainly a calling, I think, to be able to like see those people and to speak into their lives and to invite them to dinner. And, a lot of times they just need sort of, I know many of the girls have told me through the years, you just helped me have a grid for what a family could even look like. And just think like you could already be just inviting those people into your home, into your life, and they can get some framework of what it's like to raise a family and what it looks like to seek God in the middle of that. And then what I found is, I have gotten to this place, and it's like, there's just such fullness in not just ministry out on a platform, but just there's fullness in these relationships that I still have. I mean, one of those gals just came to Annie's musical the other night, and we just stay in touch, and we just I try to speak life over her whenever I can. And so it's just, it's amazing the reach that you already have. You may not even just, realize it yet, but yeah. And then I think, when we do get to this place of the kids flying the nest, the last one, it's like there is a heart of mothering that is bestowed. Like there's just this, it's grown in us to a point where we can continue that mothering in other ways around us in our community. So it's a beautiful thing.
We both have older kids now, and that is such a sweet season. I'm finding like when my oldest calls me, and she lives in Florida, and she calls me and we're talking about adult things and what she's learning in scripture. She called me to talk about Romans 12 the other day. And what a gift that is to have those conversations. And it's not that mothering ceases, but it just definitely takes on a different expression, I would say. You and I've walked a lot of life and ministry together, as we've talked about. And I mean, having soul friendships, I find is that's what's helping me know I'm not walking into a season of alone. Even in the ways that it feels like, oh, my house is going to be emptier. I'm kind of looking at the situation with my mom and kind of going, and my deep soul friendships are definitely something I'm excited to be able to give more time to in this season. How have you found that in your life as far as your relationships and the importance of prioritizing women friendships?
Yeah, for sure. I think, in the last couple of years, I've realized how much I need those deep friendships in being able to process, whether it's like maybe a hardship or if it's just whatever God is bringing me through. I need to sit and articulate it with someone, because I can often get in my own just head about it, or just, kind of be honestly sometimes just content to be in that place of just it being me and the Lord. And I'm kind of in my little, quiet couch and little corner. And it's been sweet for me for the Lord to go like, you need to prioritize, like you said, those, women friendships of women who are walking with me. And I realized I need that. I can't just go from just my quiet little hole and then go straight to a platform, because
Yeah.
often like I find that I haven't found the words. And I think sitting with godly friends has helped me find the words, whether that's me just processing it, or you often, and several of our mutual friends just speak it over us. And it's like, oh, I needed that. Thank you for
Totally.
helping me have the words to it. So important.
Well, and I find that I often don't have the words for my thing. You don't have the words for your thing, but we often do have the words for each other's thing.
right.
And that is the gift of biblical community and
Yeah.
people who are walking with Jesus. Yes, it's iron sharpens iron, but it's also it's the burden divides. It
That's
doesn't
good.
get heavier. It divides when multiple people carry it. So,
good.
what do you think about Annie, but also think about, we've got probably lots of moms listening who have just graduated a child. What do you hope and pray over her life as she transitions into this next season?
Yeah. Well, one of the lullabies, actually, I wrote this line kind of just from a prayer that I was, that very thing. I was just praying for her. But it says, my dear, I want you to know that this is my prayer for you, that the wonder that your eyes hold will show you our God who is true. Because Annie is the one, like you said, she's got more words than all of us. She's also got kind of that spirit of adventure, and she wants to get out there. She's the one kid, both of our others have, went straight into like artistry, and they didn't go the college route. She's like, wants to do all of the things and like the traditional way. And, but I pray that that God would literally show her himself. That's one of them. Like, and that he would show himself to be true in her life, that she could see it and hear it with her own eyes in a way that she knows that it's him. And then the second part says, and I pray you will find his heart to be your forever home. So whenever we're apart, he'll be the place where you go. And that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hopefully we've raised them to this place where they begin to depend upon him and depend on us less and less.
Yeah.
They still will for quite a while. But that changes in beautiful ways.
Yeah.
And, I think even Noah getting married, I think there'll just be a different way that he depends on us for encouragement. Won't be as hands-on, but I think it's beautiful when, they can have experienced that time apart from family. And that's, I know, when he really became not only my Lord, but my Father.
Same. Yes.
And it's just such a pivotal time. And so I pray that, she'll find his heart to be home. She'll always know home is with us too. But my biggest prayer is that, he will be
so
home for her.
Yeah, Maggie has actually called me before and said she knew Jesus, she believed in Jesus, but her faith became her own when she
Yeah.
was on her own.
That's good.
And isn't that how it is for all of us? That was
Yeah.
definitely my story. So that's what you hope for her. How are you discerning what's next for you? So what is next for you as a creative, as an artist? I say often we are yin and yang. Like, I've got my boards and my lists and this is what's happening next and everything planned out. And Christy is so intuitive and connected to the Spirit and his leading. And so what's next? Like, what can we expect after this record and future projects?
Yeah. I think that this lane of this lullaby album is definitely a lane that I feel like we will frequent. I also just feel like there are some ministry things in the future that I'll be able to give myself to more. I think there will be just space, that hasn't been there. Annie's going to Texas. She'll be far away. And I just think it's going to create more space for more. And so I do think that I already sense that lift and that freedom. And, Nate and I were just talking about that the other day. He just thought, how sweet to be able to encourage young moms, who they've been, pouring in, you are pouring in where you are. And maybe you've had to lay something down, and, to prioritize your family. And it's just sweet for, for us after all this time, to know we did that.
Yeah.
It's sweet to look back and you will see the fruit. That's also beautiful to be in this season. It's like, oh, you get to see the fruit of the things that you like laid down and sacrificed, and those choices that a lot of times don't get celebrated by the world.
Yeah.
But you will see the fruit of, especially in relationship with your kids. And it's just a beautiful thing. And so I love being in this place to be able to like keep encouraging young mamas, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you are going to get to this place where you just are like, wow, he does bring it back 100-fold. And that's what it feels like. It's like, okay, wow. Like this, it feels like wide open spaces, which is so much fun just to know that there's room for more. And I think it'll look like that for our family too. Like we're saying, it's just when your adult kids get older, there's just a sweetness to it that I even look forward to Annie and I getting to experience, as she just gets out on her own. So it's going to be sweet.
So good. Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could sing a little lullaby over the people who are listening and watching, over their homes, over, in some cases, their empty bedrooms. If you just a cappella sang a little lullaby over us, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So there's a song that I actually started writing with John Reddick, and we were out on a porch. Our friend Brantley was in there with us as well, and there were these cicadas were just singing
going at
on
it
the porch. And it was almost like they were our rhythm for this song we were writing. And it has kind of taken a different shape over the years. That was actually, I think, in 2016 that we started that song. But we came back around to this for this new album. It's actually the first track on the album. And I said, Nathan, is there any way you can use these cicadas from, this original voice memo? And we kind of had to pipe in some, other cicadas along with it to make it sound right. But yes, so we kind of call it the cicada song. But it really comes from Hebrews of the Lord's rest that he has for his people that we are still invited into. And it says like he's set aside a day and it's called today. And that's the day that we're still invited to his rest. And so it's simple. I'm not going to be able to sing it very well, but it says, and as long as it is called today, you'll be where my heart will stay, and I will rest in your unfailing love. For in you my heart is satisfied. You're the keeper of my life, and I will rest in your unfailing love. Yes, I will rest in your unfailing love.
So good. Thank you for being on the podcast again.
Thanks
and
for having me.
Just all of it. Thank you for stewarding your gifts so well. It is a gift to us because you steward it so well. So thank you, everybody. Go get the record. Everything will be in the show notes for you. Yes. And I highly recommend playing it over yourself as you sleep, but certainly anyone in your household. There's something about the Word of God over our lives, even in the night watches, that's really powerful and holy and sacred. So we will see you next time. And in the meantime, be on the lookout for the way that God is making everything beautiful, including you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for Everything Made Beautiful. We're grateful for your willingness to tune in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share today's episode. For more from Shannon, including articles, resources, and upcoming events, visit shannonsuzannescott.com. We'll see you next time.